Island Ford Cave Incident. On 2nd August 2004, 15-year-old Abby Peterson joined her campmates from Camp Cumbia for a caving trip. Their destination was Island Ford Cave in Virginia. Tom Watson, the lead counselor, had traversed these passages dozens of times. He guided the group of 8 teenagers into the cave entrance. For the first hour, the adventure went exactly as planned. About 500 feet from the entrance, the passage narrowed into a breakdown area. The ceiling had partially collapsed, creating a jumble of rocks and crevices. Abby was fourth in line following Tom and 2 other campers. When her turn came to cross, she placed her foot on what appeared to be a secure stone. Without warning, the rock shifted beneath her weight and she started falling. She dropped about 3 feet and landed awkwardly between 2 large rocks. The unstable rock formation above her began to give way. Several stones weighing up to 20 pounds broke loose and crashed down around her. One struck her helmet with enough force to crack the plastic. Abby found herself partially buried with stones covering her torso and left arm. Her right leg was trapped between 2 immovable boulders from mid-calf to ankle. The weight on her chest made each breath a conscious effort. Tom carefully removed the stones from her torso one by one, but her leg remained thoroughly wedged in the narrow crevice at an awkward angle. Tom tried everything to free her, but the critical pressure points remained. After 15 minutes of attempts, he sent the assistant counselor to call for emergency rescue. The waiting was the worst part, with each minute stretching painfully. Within 20 minutes, specialized cave rescue volunteers were assembling equipment. Nearly an hour after Abby's fall, 4 rescue team members arrived with specialized tools. They inserted progressively larger wedges between the rocks to reduce pressure. After 20 minutes of careful work, they created half an inch of space. A paramedic applied lubricant gel around Abby's trapped leg. With coordinated effort from 3 team members pulling at the right angle, her leg finally slipped free. They transferred her to a stretcher and slowly passed it through the tight sections. At the hospital, X-rays revealed no fractures in her leg, but 2 hairline fractures in her ribs. Abby made a full recovery in the following days. El Capitan Cave Incident. In September 1987, Carlin Allred explored El Capitan Cave on Prince of Wales Island, Alaska. Her partner watched their 3 young children on the surface while she went inside alone. She carried a carbide lamp, pen light, and Shaloom's chemical light stick. She moved through the main passage conducting survey work and measuring distances. A side passage branched off and she followed it to a small, muddy room. At floor level, she found a water crawl barely large enough to squeeze through. She left her pack, spare carbide fuel, and equipment in the muddy room. She entered the water crawl and pulled herself forward on her belly through cold water and mud. She reached a chamber on the far side and began exploring it with excitement. But her carbide lamp started dimming, with the bright white flame fading to weak yellow. She noticed scuff marks on the floor and decided to follow them. The frenetic maze created interconnected tunnels that branched unpredictably. Her lamp grew dimmer as she followed the scuff marks through passage after passage. She had left her spare carbide back at the water crawl entrance, which she could no longer find. She came across a muddy wall blocking her way and attempted to climb over it. The muddy wall gave way and she slipped down the incline. One of her fingernails caught on a rock projection and peeled back from the nail bed. Then her carbide lamp went out completely, leaving her in absolute darkness. She fumbled for her pen light, but it flickered with a weak, intermittent strobe effect. Her last option was the Cielo stick that would glow for only a few hours. She bent the plastic tube and it cast eerie green light across the muddy passages. She moved through the maze with growing desperation as the Cielo began to fade. Her injured finger throbbed with constant pain. Then she saw survey tape the brightly colored flagging she had left at the water crawl entrance. She had found her way back. She followed the markers through the muddy room to the water crawl. She pulled herself through the cold water passage and emerged where she had left her pack. She recharged her carbide lamp, and the strong white flame dispelled the dying green glow. She made her way back to the main passage and exited the cave hours later than expected. Her partner and kids had no idea she had been fighting for her life inside the maze cave. Hawaiian Sea Cave Incident. On 5th August 1997, Timothy Anderson and Wynton Nicholson entered a sea cave along the Hawaiian coastline. The weather was perfect, with clear skies and temperatures around 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Wynton was a local who had explored this cave several times before. The cave entrance was approximately 15 feet high in the black cliff face. They ventured deeper inside where the cave floor met a pool of seawater. Neither checked the local forecast that warned of high surf from a distant storm system. They paused to capture photos with Timothy positioned about 2 feet above the water's surface. Suddenly, the water in the pool receded several feet below its previous level. Wynton shouted a warning before a massive wave crashed into the cave with explosive force. The shelf was instantly submerged under 3 feet of churning ocean. Both men were knocked off their feet and swept away. Timothy tumbled underwater, his shoulder and head slamming against rocks. Wynton grabbed a rock formation but released it to follow Timothy, being pulled toward the cave entrance. The retreating water ejected them from the cave mouth over sharp volcanic rocks. Timothy's head struck a protruding rock as they were carried out. They were now in open water, being pulled away from shore by the current. Wynton told Timothy they needed to reach shore before the next wave hit. As a massive wave approached, Winton instructed Timothy to dive under it. Both plunged beneath the surface and avoided the worst of the crushing force. When they resurfaced, they were closer to shore and reached solid ground. They found themselves trapped at the base of a 40-foot sheer cliff face. The narrow strip was only 10 feet wide and would disappear at high tide. Timothy began showing signs of shock with pale skin and uncontrollable shivering. Winton created a makeshift bandage for Timothy's head wound. A tourist hiking on the cliff top spotted them and called emergency services. Within 30 minutes, the Hawaii Fire Department cliff rescue team arrived. Timothy was secured in a basket stretcher and hoisted up the cliff. At the hospital, Timothy's CT scan revealed a mild concussion but no bleeding. The next day, Timothy made a full recovery and was discharged. Emerald Sink Cave Incident. On 15th of December 1988, 3 cave divers prepared at Emerald Sink in Wakulla County, Florida. All 3 held basic cave certification. Bill Cronin was the leader with 100 to 125 cave dives of experience. Cronin wore side-mount twin 80 cubic foot tanks while his companions wore dual manifolded double 80s. They descended and penetrated 800 feet into the cave following the permanent guideline. The depth increased to 150 feet where nitrogen narcosis could affect judgment. At the 800-foot mark, Cronin decided they had gone far enough and signaled to turn around. They began their exit following the guideline back through the passages. When they reached a line junction, they proceeded along a line marked with exit arrows. The arrows pointed toward them, indicating they were heading toward an exit. Near the entrance, Cronin flashed his light signaling they were going the wrong way. His companions were confused. They were following arrows pointing toward them, but Cronin was the leader with the most experience. With misgivings, they turned around and followed Cronin back into the cave, away from the arrows. They reached the junction again, and Cronin pointed into a deep tunnel. This tunnel actually led to Clearcut Sink, another entrance 5,000 feet away. His companions checked their gauges and saw their air was running dangerously low. They were certain the arrows had been correct and tried to convince Cronin, but underwater communication was limited and Cronin was unmoved. Their air was running so low they would die if they continued deeper. They made the agonizing decision to split up and follow the arrows back. Cronin headed deeper toward Clearcut Sink, convinced he was right. The 2 companions finned desperately toward the entrance with tanks nearly exhausted. They emerged with air so low they couldn't complete proper decompression. Bill Cronin did not arrive, and they immediately contacted authorities. Recovery divers found him about 300 feet from the entrance at 117 feet depth. Cronin's body was in a pocket in the ceiling, while the guideline ran along the floor 28 feet below. He had left the line and gone up, searching for air that wasn't there. The investigation revealed the exit arrows had been correct all along. If Cronin had trusted the arrows and listened to his companions, he would have survived. El Cielo Cave Pit Incident. On the 18th of January 2004, Cornelio Garcia was heading home after a party. He was 30 years old and lived in Tamaulipas, Mexico. Garcia had spent the evening celebrating with friends in Gomez Farias. The gathering was filled with music, laughter, and drinks. As midnight approached, he decided to head home to his family. He chose the old mountain road through the El Cielo Biosphere Reserve. This path was rougher but more direct. Garcia had walked this route dozens of times even in darkness. What he didn't account for was how alcohol might affect his judgment. As he walked through the darkness, he approached a sharp curve near Rancho Cielo Junction. Just a few feet from the curve, hidden in darkness, was a natural pit. The opening was about 8 feet wide, but the pit dropped vertically 150 feet into the limestone bedrock. Instead of following the road, he strayed from the path. He stepped directly into the pit opening. Garcia plummeted 150 feet through darkness. The fall was catastrophic with massive injuries. No one witnessed his fall. When Garcia failed to return home, his family grew worried. They began searching along the old mountain road. For several days, they found nothing. The breakthrough came when searchers found disturbed ground near Rancho Cielo Junction. Scrapes in the earth suggested someone had fallen into the pit, but they couldn't see the bottom or hear any response. Garcia's brother contacted John Muskie, a well-known cave rescuer. Muskie gathered a team with specialized equipment. They arrived with ropes, harnesses, and technical gear. The team carefully rigged their descent system. The descent revealed the tragic outcome. Garcia's body was at the bottom of the shaft. The severe injuries from the 150-foot fall had proven fatal. The recovery operation took several hours with precise coordination. The combination of alcohol, darkness, and the pit's proximity to the road created a deadly situation. The El Cielo pit remained a reminder of how quickly familiar mountains could turn deadly. Armuchee Creek Cave Incident. On 1st August 1980, Ron Langston arrived at Armuchee Creek in Georgia. He was a 33-year-old certified scuba instructor. Langston and his diving companions planned to explore a hidden underwater cave system. He was highly certified and had taught others about diving safety. But on this day, he would violate every safety principle. The group entered the water and began exploring the cave passages. They encountered a tight restriction in the cave. This was a narrow opening that was difficult to pass through. Beyond it, the cave continued, tempting them with new discoveries. Langston made a fatal decision. He removed his normal diving gear and switched to a pony bottle. A pony bottle is a small emergency backup tank. His pony bottle held only 10 minutes of air total. This gave him maybe 3 minutes of exploration time. He wanted to squeeze through the restriction more easily. Before his partners could attach a safety line, Langston pushed through alone. He disappeared into the darkness. His partners waited, expecting him back within minutes. The 10-minute mark came and went. Still no sign of Langston. His partners couldn't fit through the restriction to search for him. Their own air supplies were running low. They made the agonizing decision to surface and call for help. A Floyd County rescue unit arrived at 7:30 p.m. They contacted experienced cave divers from Atlanta for help. The rescue team searched through the cave methodically. When they found Langston's body, it was wedged tightly in a rock crack. Rescuers believed he panicked when his air ran out. He had tried to force himself through what he thought was the exit. His body was wedged so tightly they had to use a shovel to free it.